When did the Australian dream die? When did we finally let it get to such a point that we decided that this was no longer worth defending, that this was no longer worth standing up for, that morality, that basic human dignity was worthy of defence? Where were you when the dream of owning a house became impossible? Where were you when the idea of getting a job that could support a family became a pipe dream? That unless you had two permanent working partners in a house, it was a complete impossibility to live without going into unsustainable debt. Debt to such a point where you were in a state of slavery because there was no other way to get out of it. When $1 million for a quarter acre, 3-bedroom house became the norm, where were you? I know what you're thinking. Who's this long-haired buffoon on my Twitter, on my Facebook, telling me what the Australian dream should be? Well, let me tell you what the Australian dream used to be. The Australian dream used to be a job in a town that was respectable, in a town that was safe, in a town that you could walk down the street and say good day to your neighbours, say good day to the local cops, go to the pub, see your mates there, have a nice time without having to worry about a knife in your belly, without having to worry about your wives, daughters, fiancés being raped in the street, being left for dead, where the police were so hamstrung, were so handcuffed, that when they caught the offenders, the justice system would do nothing more than slap their wrist, would do nothing more than tell you that for being furious that somebody had destroyed the life of your loved one, that you were to blame because you were racist, because you didn't understand where they came from. Where were you? Let me tell you where you were. Unless you're a boomer, you weren't born. There's a reason why the term boomer is now slander. To be called a boomer, the eternal boomer as 4chan would say it. My God, the shame that brings. To be someone who cares only for themselves, with no idea of consequence, no idea of future concern for those that will come after you, only caring for your own simple desires, simple needs, and the desperate urge to keep up with the Joneses. For those of you that were born and alive old enough to remember the 80s, you remember the greed is good mantra. Who cares about anybody else? Fuck you, I've got mine. That's the 80s. And this poison began being dripped in our people's ear long before then. For those of you out there who are just trying to enter the job market now, who have boomer grandparents, God forbid people are already turning 17 who were born in 2000. How many of you out there have been told by a boomer parent, oh, if you need a job, just pound the pavement. Walk into local businesses, ask to speak to the manager. Does it work? Have you tried it? Where are the jobs? I'll tell you what they are. The boomers sold them. Why'd they sell them? Money. Not for you, not for the nation, for themselves. These are people who would sell their own flesh and blood if it thought that they could get themselves an investment property, a bigger car, a holiday house. Why? Greed. Consider those that came before the boomers. The legends to a man at Gallipoli, who on that sacred sand bled and died, fighting for what they believed was right. Whether going to Gallipoli or not was the right thing to do is beyond the point here. Let's think back to those who, after Federation, after the Boer War, when the Empire called, raised their hand and said, yes, I will take the risk of death for king and country. Not because it'll be fun, not because of the chance for plunder, but because my nation needs me. And then in World War II. My God, World War II. At my local RSL was an old bloke called Jack. Jack served at El Alamein. He is the nicest bloke you would ever meet, will give you the shirt off his back. Many a time I bought Jack a beer merely because he turns up in his medals, his uniform, and he is bloody proud of who he is and where he's from. Jack will tell you today that we fought for the wrong side. Jack will tell you today that as soon as they understood that they were fighting along the Red Menace, that Stalin, responsible for 30 million dead in the Ukraine alone, people and animals reduced to cannibalism to survive. Joseph Stalin, the greatest butcher the world has ever known. Jack will tell you when they realised that Stalin was their ally, they'd made a terrible mistake. Now Jack's got to pay for his own teeth today. He's got to pay for his own glasses. He doesn't get any perks. He watched his mates and brothers bleed and die in the soil of Europe, of Africa, so that communism could be unleashed on the world. I'm not going to use Jack's surname because, one, he's a fucking top bloke, and two, I have no right to unleash his full name when I don't have his permission. And the respect I have for him means that I'm not going to dox him. But let me tell you, Jack is one of the last of the great Australians before the boomer generation. The boomers were handed utopia. Utopia. It was on a platter for them. Unprecedented economic growth. Jobs as far as the eye could see, where you could lose a job on the Monday and by Monday afternoon have another one because the opportunities were so thick on the ground you couldn't walk 10 metres without falling over them. Now, you'll see a call centre job advertised in the paper. I've worked call centres, I've managed call centres. I can tell you now, when we advertise one job, we'll get up to 600 applications. 600 applications for one job. And some of these people have university degrees. Some of these people have genuine education, which puts them in the top 10% of applicants. What happened? When did greed become so important that thinking of your children, thinking of those that came next, was of such low priority, of such low significance, that it was more important for you to be able to show off to the neighbours, for you to be able to say, I've got a new car, I've got an investment property. Fair enough, my kids will never afford to buy a house, my kids will never afford half the opportunities I've enjoyed, but fuck them, I've got mine. And now they've got the hide to put their hand out and say, where's my pension? Where's my benefits? Look what you've done. To boomers watching this, look what you've done. You've sold our future. You've sold our sovereignty. You've sold the very nation in which we are born, in whose history is littered with heroes, glory as far as the eye can see, in 200 years, 217 years. Look at what we've achieved. We have turned a nation which at every corner wanted to destroy us, wanted to tear our very being away from us. Look what we built. And you gave it away. For material possessions. Why? I don't understand. I have children of my own now. Beautiful children. And I'll openly admit, I wept like a newborn when I held them in my arms to understand that I was holding something so precious. that for the first time in my life, I understood there was something I was prepared to die for. Without a second thought. That if by my death, it could increase the opportunities, it could increase the chances of my children having what I will never have, then take it. Take my life. Spend it as you will. How did it come to this? I don't understand.